The rain had been falling since late afternoon, washing the streets in a silver glow as neon lights reflected off the wet pavement. Inside the bar, the air was warm, heavy with the smell of beer, fried food, and loud laughter. It was the kind of place where people came to forget long days and harder lives. Country music played softly in the background, interrupted by bursts of laughter and clinking glasses. When the door opened, a cold draft swept through the room, and two men stepped inside. They were black twins, tall and broad-shouldered, moving with an ease that came from confidence, not arrogance. They wore simple clothes, dark jackets, jeans, boots worn but clean. Nothing flashy, nothing that screamed importance. But there was something about them that made a few heads turn. Marcus and Malik Carter had just reunited after years apart. 7 years earlier, they had hugged their mother goodbye at an airport, promising they would both come back safe. Since then, life had taken them in different directions, though both paths were carved by duty, discipline, and sacrifice. Marcus had risen through the ranks of the army, earning respect as a captain known for protecting his soldiers like family. Malik had gone further into the shadows, joining the Navy SEALs, eventually becoming a commander whose missions would never be spoken about publicly. Tonight wasn't about rank or service. Tonight was about being brothers again. They chose a table near the bar, sitting side by side. Marcus scanned the room out of habit, though his face remained calm. Malik leaned back slightly, eyes casually drifting toward the exits, the mirrors, the reflections in the glass bottles behind the counter. Neither of them noticed they were doing it. Years of training had made it instinct. They ordered drinks and began talking quietly, laughing about childhood memories, racing bikes down cracked sidewalks, sneaking extra food from the kitchen, arguing over who was mom's favorite. For a moment, the weight they both carried felt lighter. But not everyone saw two brothers catching up. At the bar, 3 local police officers were already several drinks in. Their uniforms were half hidden under jackets, badges visible, guns holstered at their hips. Officer Daniels, the loudest among them, glanced over at the twins and frowned. "Who are they?" he muttered, taking a long sip. "Don't know," another officer replied. "Never seen them around here." Daniels watched Marcus and Malik laugh quietly. Something about their calm irritated him. "They look suspicious," Daniels said. The word hung in the air. A few minutes passed. The twins continued talking, unaware of the brewing tension. The bartender brought another round. Malik thanked her politely, meeting her eyes with a respectful nod. She smiled back, though she seemed uneasy. Daniel stood up suddenly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. The sound cut through the music. Conversation slowed. People turned to look. He walked toward the twins with exaggerated authority. "Evening," Daniel said, though there was no warmth in his voice. "You mind telling me what you're doing here?" Marcus looked up calmly. "Having a drink." Daniel smirked. "You got IDs?" Malik blinked once. "Is there a reason you're asking?" Daniel's smile faded. "I'm asking the questions." Marcus reached into his jacket slowly and placed his ID on the table. Malik did the same. Daniels barely glanced at them. "You two from around here?" Daniels asked. "Visiting," Marcus replied. Daniels leaned closer, lowering his voice. "We've had some trouble lately. People coming in, causing problems." "We're not causing any trouble," Malik said calmly. Daniel straightened and laughed. "That's usually what troublemakers say." The room grew quieter. A few patrons shifted uncomfortably. Someone whispered that this felt unnecessary. Daniel signaled to his colleagues, who stood up and joined him. 3 officers now stood over the twins. "Stand up," Daniels ordered. Marcus stood first, slow and deliberate, hands visible. Malik followed, mirroring him. Daniel stepped closer and shoved Marcus in the chest. The impact echoed in the sudden silence. Malik's muscles tensed instantly, his mind calculating angles, distances, threats. Years of combat training surged forward, but discipline held him back. Marcus didn't even stumble. "You resisting?" Daniel snapped. "No," Marcus said evenly. "But you shouldn't touch people like that." Daniel's face flushed red. "You telling me how to do my job?" "I'm telling you to calm down," Malik said quietly. That was the wrong answer. Daniels reached for his cuffs. "Hands behind your back." At that moment, the door to the bar opened again. A tall man in a crisp coat stepped inside. His presence alone seemed to change the air. Conversations stopped entirely. Colonel Richard Hayes, the base provost marshal, scanned the room. His eyes landed on the scene near the bar. "What's going on here?" he demanded. Daniels turned, startled. "Sir," routine questioning. Colonel Hayes' gaze shifted to Marcus. His eyes widened slightly. "Captain Carter," he said. Marcus turned and snapped to attention without thinking. "Yes, sir." The sound of boots clicking together echoed like thunder. The room froze. Daniel's mouth fell open. "Captain." Colonel Hayes looked furious. "Why is one of my officers being detained in a bar?" Daniel stammered, sweat forming on his forehead. I didn't know." The colonel's gaze moved to Malik. His expression changed from anger to shock. "Commander Carter," he said quietly. Malik nodded once. "Evening, sir." A stunned silence swept through the bar. Phones were pulled out. Whispers spread like wildfire. Daniel stepped back, pale. "Commander." "Sal." "Yes," Malik said calmly. "And you were seconds away from making a very serious mistake." Colonel Hayes turned to Daniels, his voice cold and controlled. "You put your hands on a superior officer. Without cause. In public." Daniels tried to speak, but no words came out. "Badge," the colonel ordered. Daniels hesitated. "Now." With shaking hands, Daniels unclipped his badge and placed it in the colonel's palm. The bartender covered her mouth. Patrons watched in disbelief. Internal affairs arrived within minutes. Statements were taken. Security footage was secured. The other officers stood stiff and silent. Marcus and Malik retrieved their IDs and jackets. As they walked toward the door, Malik paused and looked back at the room. "We don't want special treatment," he said, voice steady. "We want fair treatment. For everyone." They left together, stepping back into the rain. Outside, the night was quiet. Marcus exhaled slowly. "Still can't go anywhere without something happening." Malik smiled faintly. "At least this time, we were together." They walked down the street, two brothers carrying invisible burdens, returning to lives of service and sacrifice, knowing that respect shouldn't depend on rank, uniform, or skin color, but on simple human dignity. And somewhere behind them, a town would never forget what it witnessed that night.